full house?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman. I hereby call this review session to order, and I just want to say hello to everybody and tell all my fellow commissioners how excited and challenged I am to be here. This is really, I think, a momentous time in the city's history. We have an awful lot to do. The agenda of the de Blasio administration is very, very ambitious, and I hope that we as a commission in a thoughtful and creative way can be an important part, and I know we will be of that. I personally am very, very grateful to the mayor for giving me this honor. I've been a lifelong New Yorker, and I've spent almost my entire working life working with, for the city of New York and its citizens, and I think there's nothing that could be a higher calling than public service, and particularly the opportunity to serve this city that is really the epicenter of culture and commerce and the most remarkable urban environment in the world. I look forward to working with all of my fellow commissioners here, and many of whom have been friends of a long standing, and also with the public and with the stakeholders who come before this commission. And I think we're all in for a very exciting, challenging, and I think rewarding time. And with that, Jackie, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Weisbrod. Good afternoon. Today is Monday, March 3rd, 2014, and this is a City Planning Commission review session. A quorum is present. Let's move to the first item, which is the proposed city map amendment in the Bronx to eliminate a portion of Grant Avenue and consolidate property currently used as open space to establish parkland. Our presenter is Philip Montgomery.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Chairman Weisbrod. Today for certification, I have an application by the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation seeking an amendment to the city map in order to facilitate the establishment of a community park in the Bronx Community District 4. The proposed action seeks the mapping of existing parkland and the elimination, discontinuance, and closing of a portion of Grant Avenue in order to establish a community park on one contiguous parcel of land comprised of the eliminated street bed and 16 adjoined city-owned lots currently under the jurisdiction of the Department of Parks and Recreation. The project area is located in the Concourse neighborhood of the Bronx. It's here. It is 2 blocks to the east of the Grand Concourse. It's bounded to the north by East 170th Street and to the south by East 169th Street. The project site lies in a R7-1 zoning district, and the surrounding area is comprised primarily of 6 to 8 story residential buildings, some with ground floor retail. And these areas are primarily concentrated along East 170th Street and East 169th Street. Uses in the area include the Taft Educational Center, located just to the north of the proposed park, and the Solera, a 162-unit cooperative that was approved by the City Planning Commission in 2007 and opened in 2010, and it is located here. Additionally, there is the New Settlement Community Center is a 172,000 square foot facility located approximately 1/4 mile to the north and west at Jerome Avenue and West 172nd Street. It contains 2 new public schools, a health clinic, and multi-purpose spaces. Local transit access includes the number 4 elevated subway line to the west and the B&D line, which runs along the Grand Concourse. Both are within walking distance with stops at East 167th Street and East 170th Street. In addition, several bus lines are also within walking distance. The subject portion of Grant Avenue here is city-owned. It's mapped to a width of 60 feet. It is open and in use and contains a one-way southbound travel lane, parking lanes on both sides, and 15-foot wide sidewalks. Adjacent to Grant Avenue are 16 mostly vacant lots. These lots are owned by the city and under the jurisdiction of parks. The lots are vacant and closed off from the public, with the exception of two parks known as Grant Park. There's a park area here, and a community garden named the Dred Scott Bird Sanctuary located here. These parks contain playground equipment, swings, benches, a basketball court, and a short walking track. While city-owned and maintained by the Parks Department, these areas are not currently mapped as parkland. A traffic study has been completed and approved by the Department of Transportation that concluded that the proposed project will not adversely affect area traffic operations. And when completed, the 4.7-acre park will contain both passive and active recreation areas. Proposed facilities include a dog run, comfort station, an adult exercise area, an active play lawn, handball and basketball courts, and an amphitheater with a seasonal spray shower. With the proposed action in place, area residents will benefit from the increase in open space and the subsequent elimination of underutilized vacant property.
Thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question about whether there's any concern, need for a buffer between the existing residential uses that are on either side and then the proposed park. Maybe it's just too early for that to be known. And then, first off, I think this is fabulous, and I'm very excited about it. And was this also part of the conversation that happened along with the Sheridan Expressway study? Did this kind of come out of that? I'm just trying to remember.
This was not part of the Sheridan Expressway study. That's much further east. And then in terms of your question about the buffer, I think you're right. The design of the park will affect that. But I would note that the difference in grade between Sheridan Avenue, which is maybe what's sort of throwing off there, and Grant Avenue, there's a bit of a grade change there. So those buildings along there are much higher than where the park is.
Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you, sir. Philip, assuming this moves forward, do you have any sense of what the time frame would be in terms of bringing this online?
No, I do not, but I can get an answer for that. I do know funding is in place, and it will be constructed in phases, and the first phase will be to secure the perimeter of the park and the removal of Grant Avenue. So,
thank you.
Ms. Battaglia.
So, Philip, my initial question was going to be rhetorical. Who would object to this? I agree with Commissioner De La Hoz. It's a wonderful project. And my one concern was the traffic with the loss of the one-way street, and you addressed that.
yes.
And the other concern would be the loss of parking. Is that nominal or considered to be?
There's 104 parking spaces, but the traffic study indicated that there are many times when those spaces are not being utilized. And also, there's available inventory on the adjacent side streets to make up for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Levin.
That's the defective button down here. Philip, has the community been consulted in the design of this park so far? And if not, will they be before the park is actually designed?
I don't have I'm not sure.
They'll have a chance to tell us.
I mean, the community board is aware of the park mapping and have been in support of it for many years now. I know from past park construction projects that Parks Department has a sort of standard set of sort of outreach they do with the community board around park design. So I assume they'll be going through that.
Yeah, we better hope so.
Yeah.
Well, and the community certainly has a chance in public review to make sure it happens. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Certified?
Certified.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's now move to item number 2, page 9, proposed modification to a previously approved disposition to permit as-of-right development. Our project planner is Calvin Brown. That's item number 2, page 9.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. This is an application by DCAS seeking the removal of a non-for-profit organization deed restriction on Block 1915, Lot 52, West 131st Street in Central Harlem, Manhattan Community District 10. The subject site is located in the mid-block of West 131st Street between Lenox Avenue and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, and is located in the R7-2 zoning district. R7 districts are medium-density districts that are regulated by height factor and have a maximum residential FAR of 3.44 and a maximum community facility FAR of 6.5. The subject site is currently comprised of one tax lot and is currently vacant and has a lot area of approximately 3,197 square feet. The surrounding area, as shown in yellow, is basically residential. There's a few institutional uses. There's a church that is adjacent to the subject site. And most of the retail and commercial is along Lenox Avenue and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. In 1979, the subject site, Lot 52, was included in the DCAS application seeking the unrestricted disposition of Lot 52. However, the Board of Estimates approved the disposition with a deed restriction for a non-for-profit organization, which limited the pool of potential buyers to non-for-profit organization, which translated to a use of community facility use. In 1990, DCAS sold the subject site to a non-for-profit, Harlem Week, Inc., which is a Harlem-based non-for-profit arts and cultural organization that has been putting on, at first it was in 1974 Harlem Week, but now they have a month-long celebration celebrating the culture and the history of Harlem. However, the site was vacant for 23 years, and now the organization seeks to remove the restriction on the site so the site can be sold without the restriction. So DCAS is coming back for this to modify the originally approved disposition in order to develop the site pursuant to zoning.
Questions? Yes, Ms. Pataglia.
Calvin, will this be sold to the current owner, or would it be put up for public auction?
The owner would be allowed to sell it. It's just removing the restriction so that it can be sold without the restriction that it had to be sold to a non-for-profit organization.
Got it. Thank you.
Ms. Del Toro.
Just if we approve the removal of the restriction, what can be developed there? Do you have any idea?
Well, see, the zoning is R72, so it's regulated by height factor. There wasn't an environmental reasonable worst case development scenario done. So basically, they're projecting like maybe a 6-story building with maybe 12 units in it, which is typical of the built form in this area.
So in other words, residential development.
Residential, yes.
As opposed to strictly community facilities.
Yes, no, I understand.
Ms. Leffin.
Does the church have lot line windows? I'm just looking at this picture and realizing there might be some real development challenges there.
Yes, those are windows.
Okay. And they're on the lot line.
Yeah, the picture doesn't lie, unfortunately.
Any other questions? Okay, certified. Thank you.
Thanks, Calvin. Calvin also has the next item, item number 3, page 22, with a similar action, proposed modification to a previously approved disposition to permit as-of-right development at West 121st Street. That's item number 3, page 22.
So this is another application by DCAS seeking a similar removal of a non-for-profit organization deed restriction, this time on Block 1926, Lot 58, West 121st Street. The subject site is located on the south side of West 121st Street between Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard and St. Nicholas, and is adjacent to that Frederick Douglass, St. Nicholas triangle, and is located in a R7A and a R8 contextual zoning district. These contextual districts have maximum street wall height and building height. The R7A has a maximum street wall height of 65 feet and a maximum building height of 80 feet. The R8A has a maximum street wall height of 85 feet and a maximum building height of 120 feet. The maximum residential FAR is 6.02 for the R8A. Majority of the site is located within the R8A, which is the higher density district. The site is comprised of one tax lot, which is currently vacant and has approximately a lot area of 1,817 square feet. The surrounding area is predominantly residential. There is an institutional use on the block, which is a school, and the commercial retail is along St. Nicholas Avenue, Frederick Douglass Boulevard, and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. Is very close to the 125th Street commercial corridor. In 1979, similar to the previous action, this was part of a DCAS application seeking the unrestricted disposition of Lot 58 at the Board of Estimates. The disposition was approved, but with the deed restriction for non-for-profit organization use, and they applied a further restriction that stated non-for-profit recreational purposes. The adjacent lot, 57, had a Good Shepherd Church, which had a school, and they needed space for their students for recreational space. So they were the purchasers of that adjacent lot. However, in 2010, that site was sold, so the adjacent lot, Lot 58, was no longer used for recreational purposes. So now the owners are now seeking to lift that restriction so the site can be sold without that non-for-profit recreational purpose restriction.
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Reade.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Calvin, I'm assuming at the time these parcels were originally disposed of, the pricing and so forth was done with this restriction in place.
Yes.
And so therefore I'm assuming that the value paid to the city at the time reflected this not-for-profit use. As part of this process of removing the restriction, is it intended or are there any plans to in any way recapture the additional value created by?
Yes, that is part of the transaction. Since these sites were disposed without their full bundle of rights, now that we're lifting restriction, there will be some money that will be recouped by the city.
So there will be an appraisal process and some
Yes.
determination. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Delauz?
So in the information that we received, at one point it referred to the adjacent property where the school is. I think it's PS 59 in the High School for Arts and Design in the present tense.
No.
Did I skip? I'm sorry.
Skip.
Never mind.
That's okay.
This is a different.
In the future.
There's another similar size slot.
Any other questions? Thank you. Certified?
Thank you, Calvin. Let's now move to item number 4, page 35, proposed certification that a transit easement and volume are required and acceptable for property located at 252 East 57th Street. Our presenter is Dominic N. Sweeney. That's item number 4, page 35.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. A special transit land use district is located at various intersections along 2nd Avenue in Manhattan. The district was established to facilitate the construction of the 2nd Avenue subway. This application involves a portion of the transit land use district between 61st Street and 32nd Street on 2nd Avenue. The administrative approval process involving the transit easement as described in Section 95041 is a two-step process. First, a determination is made jointly by the MTA and the City Planning Commission as to whether the transit easement volume is needed. And secondly, if one is required, a final certification is made on the specific easement volume. Now, the subject zoning lot is located here. It's a large zoning lot, about 62,700 square feet, on 2nd Avenue between East 57th Street and East 61st Street. It's composed of two tax lots, tax lot 13 where currently stands a school, which you can see here on 86th Street and here on 87th Street. And then an empty lot, a vacant lot here, lot 15, which you can see in the photo here on 2nd Avenue is completely vacant at the time. It's zone C19, which permits 10 FAR residential and 2 FAR of commercial. The school is 11 stories, about 255 square feet, and is mixed use given the fact that part of it is community facility for the school and part of it is this shop here on 57th Street. So the proposal is to construct on the vacant portion a 500 square foot mixed use but predominantly residential 57-story building. Sorry, what did I say? 500,000. Thank you.
That would be quite something for this location.
So to reiterate, just to talk about the section a little bit more, the 95041 states that the MTA and the City Planning Commission must first determine that an easement volume is needed, and secondly, if there is one, whether it is acceptable. So in a letter dated February 10th, the MTA certified to the Department of City Planning two things. Number one, that a transit easement volume was required on the zoning lot. And secondly, the drawings that the applicant submitted to the MTA showing what the easement would look like are acceptable to the MTA. And I'd like to show you those right now. By the way, the easement drawings are included also in your packages. So this is the site plan, this is the school, and this is the proposed building that would be on 2nd Avenue. And the small pink square here is the easement volume that's required by the MTA. And a blow-up of that would be located here. There'd be two entrances into the easement at grade, one would be on 2nd Avenue, one would be on 56th Street. And within the easement there would be an escalator located here, and also stairs that would be located here. And a section of that easement, which is taken from this point right here, is shown here. The easement goes down about 30 feet. The stairs actually have 4 paths, double back twice. The escalator, however, doubles back once. And this would lead down to the 57th Street station for what will eventually be the 2nd Avenue subway. Just to note one more thing, on December 16th, Community Board 6 sent a letter to the department expressing approval of the application by a vote of 37-1. Are there any questions?
Ms. Delaus first.
So I think my question is now appropriate. So at one point in the packet, it refers to the school in the present tense, and another point in the packet, it refers to the school in the past tense. Can you maybe help clarify that? And,
right.
And how this might impact the school specifically? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was a mistake, which I thought I corrected. But the school is built, and it is operating, and you can see from the photographs. So,
Ms. Chen.
And which party would be responsible for maintaining the escalators? Would that be the MTA or the developer?
There might be an agreement between the MTA and the ownership. I'm not sure. I do know that there is an easement agreement that has been executed by the parties, and so I'm sure that I believe what normally happens is that will be dealt with in an easement agreement, but I'm not 100% sure who would be responsible for the maintenance.
Thank you.
Mr. Cantor.
The arrangement between the MTA and the developer include considerations for columns coming through the building, coming through the easement, do you know?
It probably does. I'm not really sure.
So there will be an acquiescence on the part of the owner?
I believe so. I believe the text itself does make reference to the easement and the columns that might go through the easement. So, okay. Sorry.
Any other questions? Vice Chairman.
Just so I understand, so the development, assuming it goes forward and fully developed, would maintain that stairway as configured?
I believe that since this is a portion of the 2nd Avenue subway that I don't believe is currently being constructed, that's mostly being done on the Upper East Side, which that portion would then curve towards Midtown. This portion here might be many years away, so there could be some modifications with this. But at this point, as expressed, what the applicant expressed here, the MTA does find acceptable.
As they've shown in the letter, as they've evidenced in the letter.
Just to add to that, I think in the past, the MTA has taken easements in some buildings that ultimately, when they're built, become retail or some other space that is actually used by the building for a duration of time until the MTA, in fact, needs to start the development of the subway, and then they have the right then at that point in time to take back that space.
I see. Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Levin.
I mean, it is unfortunate to end up with these dead spaces that are dedicated to the MTA, but, from a streetscape standpoint, it's really great to have some temporary use in there. I suppose that's between the applicant and the MTA, but I hope that we could encourage that to happen, because from a planning standpoint, it makes the street feel a lot better. My only real question is about the applicant's name. Snowplow, LH. And is it appropriate that we're handling this?
Could have been a lot worse. Any other questions? Okay, so I think on this, by a show of hands, can I have your approval to send a letter of approval to the Department of Buildings? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, item number 5, page 52, involves our first pre-hearing application of the day. It's a proposed notice of intent to acquire office space for the Manhattan Borough President's Northern Office to be located at 431 West 125th Street. And our presenter is Edwin Marshall. That's item number 5, page 52.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod. Good afternoon, Commissioners. DCAS proposes to acquire approximately 1,500 square feet of ground floor space located within a building located at 431 West 125th Street. The subject property is located within West Harlem, Manhattan Community District 9. The requested action would facilitate the relocation of the Borough President's Northern Manhattan office, which is located at the 5th floor of the Harlem State Office Building, which is located at 163 West 125th Street. At present, the Borough President's Northern Manhattan office space comprises approximately 1,500 square feet of floor area, and it has occupied that current space for a little more than 20 years. Now, the new office would occupy the ground floor of a 5-story mixed-use building located at 431 West 125th Street, which is located on the north side of 125th Street between Morningside Avenue and Amsterdam Avenue. This is 125th Street right here. This is the Grand Houses, which faces 431 West 125th Street to the south. The photograph below shows the existing built condition. This is a 5-story building with ground floor retail space. The upper floors have 12 occupied residential units, and again, the retail space on the ground floor is vacant. The site is zoned R7A C24, which allows community facility and residential uses, and also allows ground floor retail use, and is also located within the special 125th Street district. The proposed use of the subject property's ground floor space is consistent with the overall goals of the special 125th Street district and conforms with the underlying R7A C24 use regulations for this site. This office is well served by mass transit. The IND, A, B, C, and D lines are located at St. Nicholas Avenue, which is about 2 blocks to the east, and the number 1 train, Broadway line, which is located 2 blocks to the west. Also, this site is well served by many bus lines which travel along 125th Street as well as along Convent Avenue and Amsterdam Avenue and Morningside Avenue. Now, the new office will have 5 full-time Manhattan Borough President office staff. It is of sufficient size and will provide ADA-compliant office facilities, meeting and conference room areas, adequate filing space, and also would enable the Borough President to meet their constituent outreach efforts in the near and long term. The Manhattan Borough President office will maintain this space. This new office offers street-level visibility and access and will enable the Borough President to better fulfill its mission to provide constituent services.
Questions? Okay, well, that's a real tribute to the new borough president and to the presentation. Thank you very much, and this will go out to a public hearing.
Thank you, Edwin. Let's now go to item number 6, page 63, a proposed special use permit to facilitate commercial space on the ground and cellar levels of an existing building located at 59-61 Thompson Street. Back from Community Board of Borough President review. That's item number 6, page 63. And our presenter once again is Dominic.
Good afternoon again. This application is for a special permit under Section 74-781. The application, if granted, would allow a modification of Section 42-14D2B, which restricts commercial and manufacturing uses below the second story of certain use groups to certain use groups in buildings in M15B districts for a site located at 59-61 Thompson Street. That location is here. This is Thompson Street. It's between Spring and Broome. It's on the west side of the street. And it's about a 4,000 square foot lot. And currently, in the M15B district, currently allows 5 FAR of manufacturing and 5 FAR of commercial. And the building itself has a little less than 4 FAR of commercial. Just 4 FAR. Generally, for buildings in M15B districts, the space below the floor level of the second story of the building can only contain certain commercial manufacturing uses, specifically use groups 7, 9, 11, 16, 17A, 17B, 17C, and 17F. Mostly repair and some manufacturing uses are allowed there. These permitted uses do not include use group 6, which is the use the applicant would like to see in the spaces if this special permit is granted. So the action is to allow use group 6 uses in 2 spaces. Number 1 is a small space located on the first floor here, which is about 350 square feet, and then also a larger space in the cellar floor, which is about 1,624 square feet. Now currently, this is vacant, and this in the cellar is being used for storage. The area itself is predominantly mixed use, with many of the buildings, in fact many on the stretch of Thompson Street, having retail on the ground floor and residential above. So Section 74-781 requires for a conversion to commercial use in this area that the owner of the space or predecessor in title has made a good faith effort to market the space. And that includes, in the words of the text, at a mandated use at fair market rentals, and such efforts include such things as advertising in local press, listing the space with brokers, notifying the New York City agencies, and also informing local and citywide industry groups. And it also says that such efforts should continue for 6 months. So in this particular instance, the applicant's marketing involved, number 1, advertising in some local papers, including the New York Post, Our Town, West Side Spirit, and Our Town Downtown. They did that from late June to late December of 2012. In addition, the applicant sent letters to the EDC, the Industrial Retention Network, and other agencies and also organizations, both in New York City and outside New York City, that could find a match for this space. A sign was also attached to the building. And I took this photo in August of last year. I just was there a few days ago. The sign is still there. It's been there since June of 2012. It explains that light manufacturing, no retail or food, and it is the mandated use, 75 square feet on the first floor and 40 square feet, $40 square feet for the cellar. They also hired a broker who did advertising and did receive 12 responses for marketing of this site, but none of those responses were for uses that could be done currently at this site, no conforming uses. In a letter dated January 27th, Community Board 2 voted to disapprove the application with conditions by a vote of 36-0. The board noted that the application includes an unconvincing demonstration of effort, including many of out-of-state agencies were contacted, and they also believe that the applicant failed to advertise in more locally known papers. They believe that the intended use is an eating and drinking establishment. And they're against that use because they believe it would be harmful to the mostly residential quality of the block. They do acknowledge that the applicant promised via letter not to use the premises in this manner. And the letter, which you don't have in your packages, I will provide. But it's a very simple letter, just applicant stating to the board that they will not use this space for an eating and drinking establishment. The key words used by the board is that they strongly recommend denial of this application because an unenforceable prohibition of eating and drinking establishment, unless an enforceable prohibition of eating and drinking use can be put in place. Then the Manhattan Borough President's Office, in a letter dated February 27th, stated that they gave a conditional approval to this. Number one, the Borough President stated that the applicant had made a good faith effort to market it. They acknowledged the Community Board's point on eating and drinking establishments, and they stated that if there a way for the applicant to keep eating and drinking establishments out of this space, they would be very much for that. In fact, that was the condition of the Borough President. Lastly, the Borough President also noted that they asked the Chair of the City Planning Commission should direct the department to expand the standards of Section 74-781 to encourage applicants to more proactively coordinate with city agencies to get some tech manufacturing uses in the manufacturing spaces that are in Soho.
Questions? Dr. Cantor.
Okay. Wouldn't the primary reason for wanting the 6 be to allow for establishments such as the one that we're talking about?
In conversations that I've had with the applicant for months, they reiterate, not only to me, but also in the letter to the community board, that they acknowledge that retail could be done here, a shop could be done here. There is a shop actually located in the same building, right there. Okay. So they do acknowledge that, sure, use group 6, a lot of the uses are eating and drinking establishments, fair enough, but the applicant has stated to me and also to the community board that they will not put eating drinking establishments.
Well, that could be, with all due respect to the applicant, it could be an honorable statement until he, if and when, flips the site. And then the new owner has no responsibility towards us that I can see unless we put in something restrictive. Is there a mechanism that can do that?
It could be done, but it would be somewhat unusual.
Would it establish a precedent?
Yes.
Yes.
Sit down.
I think it just, as you know, I think the practice has been that, you know, there are a variety of uses in use group 6 that would be allowed. The commercial uses are broken down already into a variety, you know, different use groups, and generally we've taken the position that what's good for one particular is that use within a use group is good for other uses within that use group as well. But yes, it could be done through a condition on the special permit if that is what's determined to be the best course of action.
Ms. Battaglia. I'm sorry. More questions?
Yeah, so, Adam, what I think you're saying is in the absence of the not knowledge of unintended consequences, it's best to leave the 6 as 6, and if we choose to do it, we do it, or otherwise we don't do it. Is that correct?
Right.
Thank you.
So my question was similar, but based on I didn't think we would place such a restriction, and I know it would set precedent, as was duly noted, and the briefing package seems to say that just based on the configuration that it's unlikely that it may be anything other than an eating and drinking establishment. I understand the community's concern. My question is purview. If that restriction is not attached to it, the findings are met. So
it's acknowledged as well by the various stakeholders that have reviewed this application.
Correct. Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms.
Just a quick question regarding the letter from Sylvan Real Estate, the broker who is handling the marketing. They've indicated that they've attached some documents to show, I guess, proof of their marketing efforts, and I was just wondering if, I know we have one for the call log, but I was just looking to see the other documents that they have indicated they enclosed.
The documents were submitted to the department, and what they mostly were photocopies showing the invoices for the newspaper advertisements and also the photocopies of the actual advertisements that were placed in the newspaper. It was a stack about that big.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other, and I think also it might have been one page demonstrating what the ad was, which was put on the.
Thank you.
Do I understand that no legally qualifying uses responded at all?
Yeah, I took a look at that, and most of the uses that responded were retail. Retail, eating and drinking establishments, things like that. And we did take a look at the uses that did respond.
Even at these quite considerably below market rents of market for non-conforming uses?
Yes.
No, I believe me, quite familiar with it. Any other questions, Mr. Taggart?
I'm sorry, not to beat a dead horse, and I apologize for the expression. It appears to me that animal lover here. It appears to me that since the original application was explicit in saying that it would be an eating and drinking establishment, that if we did want to please the community on this one, we should probably look to set that precedent and have some language. But it's just something to consider, Mr. Chair.
Right, that's true.
Ms.
And
Ellis.
I just want to, of course,
sorry,
this is a pre-hearing review. The applicant will be here on Wednesday, so.
My question is less about this specific application and more about applications like it that we have seen over time, and I'm just wondering if there are any plans by the department to take a look at what the zoning actually is versus what the uses have evolved to be, and whether or not it's time to rethink things in a way that is a balance.
Day one.
No, I'm intrigued by Edith's answer, so I'm looking forward to it.
I don't think my answer is going to be very surprising. The zoning in Soho has a range of complexities that some would say include obsolete zoning regulations, and the department has wanted to revisit the Soho zoning regulations. As you know, in the past several years, we haven't had huge resources to take on a work program that ideally we would have liked to take on. If there is change in the future, this is something that we would like to look at very seriously.
And let me just add, as someone who has spent a considerable amount of time over the last several decades dealing with the complexities and idiosyncratic nature of Soho zoning, we'd like to take it on again, resources and other priorities willing.
That's good. Thank you.
Ms. Levin.
Which I think is terrific. We've had sort of a workaround for Soho for a long time, which has gotten us to a maybe appropriate result, but it's been not the most direct way to go at it. But I would also suggest that the notion that eating and drinking establishments are in the same use group with much less intrusive retail uses is problematic across the city, because use group 6 now includes some, bars and not so much nightclubs, but restaurants that can be very disruptive in a local community. And we've seen that issue not just here, but in all residential communities who want neighborhood retail but don't want noisy bars. So maybe we should also look at that use group as well. And then I would also hope maybe the applicant can explain to us on Wednesday whether it's even feasible to put a restaurant down here. Could it be mechanically equipped to be a restaurant? And if the answer to that is no, I think that gives us some measure of assurance.
Representative from the applicant is here, so I'm sure they'll address it on Wednesday.
Okay, any other questions? I guess we'll revisit this on Wednesday. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic and Anita. Let's now move to item number 7, page 90. It's a proposed modification of a previously approved disposition to facilitate as-of-right development on property located at 259 Kosciuszko Street. Our presenter is Alex Summers, and it's back from Community Board review. Item number 7, page 90.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod, Commissioners. This is an application by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services for a modification of ULURP number 970346, PPK, to remove an accessory extension or enlargement use restriction in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Community Board 3, Brooklyn. If approved, this action would facilitate the unencumbered sale of the subject site, which is located at 259 Kosciuszko Street between Troop and Tompkins. The subject site is approximately 1,600 square feet and is currently vacant. The surrounding area is zoned R6B, which has a residential FAR of 2.0, a minimum base height of 30 feet, and a maximum height of 50 feet after a 10-foot setback. In 1997, DCAS filed an application for a batch disposition in this area, including this subject site. At that time, due to the small lot size, this lot was disposed of with an AEE use restriction, which only allows for the expansion of an adjacent use onto the site or for a nearby accessory use such as parking. It was sold at auction in 1999 to the owner-occupied property next door, and it's been in sole ownership since that time. It was referred out to the community board, this application, for 60 days. They provided no comments during this period, and it's now back for a vote by acclamation. Just as a note, so you're aware, the subject site's small size and location restricts it to a 1 or 2 family use only.
Questions? And my understanding, this is a non-ULURP item, which requires our approval to send to Department of Buildings. May I have a show of hands, all those who approve? Unanimous? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Now, let's now move to item number 8, page 121. It's a Brooklyn pre-hearing application with respect to a proposed zoning map amendment from R5DC13 to R5DC23 to facilitate an intended request by the applicant for a BSA variance for BSA action regarding a special permit that would allow physical culture establishments. That's item number 8, page 121. And our presenter is Richard Jacobs.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod, Commissioners. This is a private application back for pre-hearing. It's an application for a zoning map change from R5DC13 to R5DC23. Rezoning would facilitate the development of a physical culture establishment, or what is more commonly known as the health club, in this case Planet Fitness, at 1380 Rockaway Parkway in the Canarsie section of Brooklyn, Community District 18. The change from C13 to C23 would permit the applicant to proceed with filing an application at the Board of Standards and Appeals under ZR Section 7336, Special Permit for Physical Culture Establishment, which is inapplicable in the current C1 district. The project site is generally bounded by the western portion of Rockaway Parkway between Farragut Road and Glenwood Road. The rezoning involves extending the existing C23 overlay from 200 feet to 300 feet. The site is located in an R5 district, which extends from Foster Avenue to Flatlands Avenue. Within that R5 district, the C23 district north of Farragut Road for 225 feet, again extending 200 feet within 4 feet of the subject property. Also across the street on the eastern portion of Rockaway Parkway is an existing C23 district. Again, the 8,353 square foot project site, an existing building, is proposed for Planet Fitness Health Club. The lot has 83 feet of frontage on Rockaway Parkway and approximately 104 foot in depth. Historically, the property has been used for conforming commercial uses. It's currently improved with a vacant 1-story plus cellar building, a former Rite Aid. You can see that blue building in the upper right-hand corner. The existing building will remain will remain with interior and exterior facade improvements. However, there are no plans for enlargement. So the building will have 7,960 square feet of physical culture establishment on the ground floor and an equivalent amount of space in its cellar. Required parking qualifies for a waiver in the C23 district. So just to summarize, the proposed rezoning from C13 to C23 would permit the applicant to apply for a BSA special permit to permit the existing building to be used for a physical, cultural, or health establishment not permitted in the current C1 district. The zoning map change is an extension of the adjacent C23 district directly to the immediate north from 200 to 300 feet. Community Board 18 held a public hearing and by unanimous vote of 36 in favor, 0 opposed, recommended approval of the application. Distributed in your package today is the Borough President's recommendation, also approving the application without conditions, while urging the applicant to hire local Canarsie residents, returning veterans, and use Brooklyn contractors, specifically women, minority business enterprises. On Wednesday, the applicant's attorney will be present to testify, and someone from Planet Fitness will be here to also answer any questions. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions about this? This physical culture special permit may be another vestigial revision of the zoning resolution, which I am embarrassed to say I'm responsible for, but in any case, it served its purpose. But thank you. This is a public hearing on Wednesday, right?
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Let's now move to item number 9, page 133. It's a Queens pre-hearing application for a proposed special use permit to facilitate expansion of an existing nursing home. Back from Community Board and Borough President review. That's item number 9, page 133. And our presenter is Stephen Everett.
Good afternoon, Chair Weisbrod and Commissioners. This application, which was certified on December 2nd, seeks a special permit for certification of uses to facilitate the enlargement of an existing 3-story plus basement 143-bed nursing home that's located in Kew Gardens Hills, Queens Community District 8. The existing Meadow Park facility is located on Block 6861, Block 12, in a 31,580 square foot building that was originally built in 1956. It currently does not meet New York State Department of Health standards, including those for room sharing, wheelchair access, or amount of communal or dining space. So the owners have sought to enlarge the facility to meet these standards. In July of 2011, the BSA granted a variance to permit the enlargement of the building, awarding relief from floor area, lot coverage, front yard, side yard, and height requirements. The proposed enlargement has also been approved by the State Hospital Review and Planning Council and the New York State Department of Health. This City Planning Commission special permit will allow the occupant to occupy the enlarged portion of the building under the BSA approvals. So the owners also own lots 9, 11, 23, and 24, which are adjacent to Lot 12. And together these 5 lots comprise the project development site. Only Lot 9 is currently being used as residential use, and the other 3 have already been converted to accessory storage and office use by the nursing home facility. Once enlarged, the facility will maintain the same number of beds at 143, but the total floor area will increase from 31,580 square feet to 60,366 square feet. This difference will allow updated and expanded community space while decreasing room sharing, especially for those people occupying 3- and 4-person rooms. Existing 2-family homes owned by the applicant will be demolished to accommodate this enlargement, and 15 parking spaces will also be provided on site, whereas none exist now. These will be located on the basement level, and the downward slope will direct them out of sight of neighboring property. To facilitate this project, the applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to Section 7490 to permit this enlargement. The district currently has 8.5 beds per 1,000 residents, which is greater than the citywide ratio of 5.5 beds per 1,000 residents. Therefore, the conditions of Section 2242, certification of certain community facility uses, are met and the applicant is eligible for this special permit. The applicable findings for Section 7490 are that the architectural landscaping treatment and the height of the proposed building containing such uses blend harmoniously with the topography of the surrounding area. The proposed facility will not require any significant additions to the supporting services of the neighborhood, or that provision for such services has been made. That the streets providing access to such use are adequate to handle the traffic generated thereby, or provision has been made to handle such traffic. And that the disadvantages to the community imposed by the concentration of these facilities in the community district are outweighed by the benefits derived from the proposed use. So again, the Board of Standards and Appeals has already approved the plans, the building plans, to enlarge the bulk of the building, and the City Planning Commission special permit will allow them to occupy the building for use. This was certified on December 2nd. The Community Board held a public hearing on January 7th and has issued a recommendation to approve the application by a vote of 26 in favor, 2 opposed, and 0 abstaining. The Borough President then held a public hearing on February 6th and has also issued a recommendation to approve.
Questions? Yes.
I just have a quick question about, more of a curiosity about the order of the approvals. Is it normal in these circumstances for the BSA to go first and then for us to come second in a situation like this? I don't know if you know.
That's my understanding, that it is normal, because that way the drawings that are shown to the City Planning Commission have already been vetted through the Board of Standards and Appeals, and so the last step is to use.
Ms. Besser.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious, there were 2 people that were opposed. Do you happen to know why?
Yes, there was some concern that the 4 other tax lots, 9, 11, 23, and 24, had existing 2-family homes on them. Even though they had been converted, there was some resistance on the community board to demolish these to enlarge the facility, because they wanted to keep the residential neighborhood character intact. This was a fairly minor concern. It's not shared by the entire community board.
Thank you.
Ms. Battaglia.
Thank you. So those are vacant 2-family homes?
No. One of them is occupied with residential uses. The other 3, so all 4 are owned by the facility. The other 3 have already been converted to accessory use.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
The next item is also a pre-hearing application, this time in Staten Island. It's proposed zoning map amendment from R3X to R3X-C12 and from R31 to R31-C12 to facilitate a commercial development and bring existing uses into conformance. This is item number 10, page 178, and our presenter is Roselle Leader.
Good afternoon, Chair Weisbrod, Commissioners. This is a private application for a zoning map amendment to rezone the eastern end of 2 blocks on the west side of Richmond Avenue to north and south of Morrell Avenue to add C1 to overlay districts over the existing R3X and R3A districts in the Bull's Head area. Of Community District 2 in Staten Island. In the rezoning area to the south of Morrell Avenue, That's this one. The rezoning would facilitate development of a one-story commercial building north of Morrell Avenue. That rezoning area would, the rezoning would bring the existing development back into conformance. The project was certified on November 18th and sent to the Community Board 2 and Borough President. Community Board 2 submitted a favorable recommendation with a unanimous vote of 35 votes, and the Borough President also submitted a favorable recommendation. Just to reiterate from the last presentation, the proposed C12 district permits use groups 1 through 4 and 6, and the typical retail and service establishments allowed in C1 overlay districts includes drugstores, neighborhood grocery stores, restaurants, professional offices, with a height limit of 30 feet or 2 stories. And this shows the site plan for the proposed redevelopment of the lot south of Morrell Avenue with the building at the corner and required buffering of and landscaping between the zoning lot and the existing residential development.
Questions? Ms. Levins.
Well, I'm just remembering one of Commissioner Cirillo's questions at certification, which is, I think there was a desire to understand see an image of the maximum massing of this development, with particular concern to the buildings, the residential buildings on Merrill to the west, whether they'd end up facing a large blank wall, sort of what the worst case scenario is.
This is the rendering that was presented. It shows one story. This is the Richmond Avenue elevation, and here's the Morrell Avenue elevation. Windows, not a blank wall.
But I think the concern was about the western facade, as it will be adjacent to the residential buildings. Right, exactly. So how high is that wall?
It says the total building height at Richmond Avenue is 24 feet, approximately. The parapet height of the pier is 17.
Okay, and is that right on the lot line, or is there a driveway going back there?
There's it's not a driveway, there's a space, and it's actually 8-foot setback, and it includes landscaping.
Some landscaping, okay. All of which is sort of beside the point because we're doing a zoning map change, but it's still helpful to see. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Besser? Yeah.
Thank you. So you had mentioned to us that the tenants in the adjacent property will be
Yes.
given an opportunity to lease space in the property that will be developed.
Yes, in these two buildings, there currently are commercial, there is one commercial tenant which the applicant received a violation from DOB from, but there are also community facility tenants, and that the commercial tenant and the community facility tenant will be given the opportunity to relocate in the new building.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
So now let's go to our future votes post-hearing follow-up items. On March 5th, which is this Wednesday, we have Domino Sugar, which we will come back and discuss at the end of today's agenda. And staff would recommend for your favorable consideration the following proposals. The 88th Precinct Station House Landmark in Brooklyn, 123 William Street office space to be used by HRA in Manhattan, and the Braddock Hillside rezoning in Queens, which is proposed rezoning from R32 and C22 to C41 to facilitate a wider range of commercial uses within an existing shopping center. The next action is proposed to be voted out on March 17th, which is a Monday, which is the deadline for the particular proposal involving a mixed-use development, including affordable housing, at 606 West 57th Street in Carolina. There you are. It's going to begin our discussion on this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, this is a proposal by TF Cornerstone for a site at 606 West 57th Street. This application was heard on January 22nd and will be voted on March 17th. To refresh the Commission, the proposed development includes a building of up to 450 feet or 42 stories, up to 1.2 million gross square feet of floor area, 1,189 units. 20% of the floor area is proposed to be affordable, the equivalent of 237 units, 42,000 square feet of commercial or community facility floor area on the ground floor, and a public parking garage of up to 500 spaces. The actions include a rezoning from an M15 and M23 to a C47. Text amendments include inclusionary housing designation, modification of the inclusionary housing structure to allow up to 4 FAR to be exempt from the inclusionary housing calculation, an amendment to allow vehicle preparation and repair accessory to an automobile showroom, and most recently to include a hotel special permit. This revised text amendment was filed this past Thursday on February 27th. The proposal additionally includes a special permit to allow up to 500 parking spaces in a public garage and an authorization to extend a curb cut on a wide street. The Commission received 2 items in Friday's package, the most recent package. At the last review session, we discussed the applicant's response to many comments that were raised at the public hearing, and those comments were addressed in a February 14th letter. The most recent letter, dated February 28th, responds to parking comments, as well as comments received on February 13th and distributed to the Commission in the previous package from Crowded. The parking, again, is a proposal for 500-space garage to replace an existing 1,000-space garage, as well as meet the demand generated by the new proposed development. The development itself generates 210 spaces as of right. The letter responds in 2 ways. First, it explains the distinction between seeker methodology and the special permit findings methodology, which is concerned with the appropriateness of the proposal given nearby development, the parking supply, and the displacement of any existing parking. The letter additionally includes revised analysis and updated figures from the applicant and incorporates many of the comments that were made by Crowded in its letter. Based on the revised calculations, the staff believes that the proposed number of spaces has met the findings. The second item that was included in the Commission's package is the revised text amendment, which again was filed this past Thursday on February 27th. First, I want to note that the amendment to the inclusionary housing base, the 4 FAR adjusted base, continues to be in the proposed text amendment. The Commission has previously discussed the appropriateness of this text amendment as part of the application, and very early on stressed the importance of maximizing the amount of affordable housing at this location. As the applicant stated at the hearing, there has been no tenant identified. That continues to be the case. The proposal does not use this provision. The Commission at the last review session did discuss limiting this provision to community facility uses. In this instance, again, the applicant hasn't identified a community facility tenant for the site. Therefore, the staff's recommendation is to modify the text to remove this provision from the text amendment, in which case the underlying regulations would apply. The revised text amendment lastly includes a special permit to make hotel uses discretionary at the site. C47 allows hotels as of right. The proposal to include this text was received after the public hearing. It has not been discussed publicly. As presented, again, there is no hotel as part of the proposal or as part of the building program, and the staff's recommendation is to modify the text to remove the hotel special permit from the text amendment.
Questions?
That's pretty clear.
Ms. Levin?
Just one question, one comment. Just to be clear, on the parking garage, the 500 space maximum is if there is auto use in the building, correct?
The public garage would be up to 500 spaces if all three below grade levels were used for a public parking garage. Alternatively, the applicant is seeking a concurrent special permit for a public garage of up to 395 spaces, and that's in the instance if there's an auto showroom occupying the ground floor commercial space. Typically, auto showrooms operate best if there's a repair facility and a car vehicle preparation facility associated with it, and that would occupy the first below grade level, in which case the public garage would be limited to second and third below grade levels. It would be smaller, and it would be 395 spaces, right?
I'm fully in support of the modification of the text amendment. I think we had a full discussion of particularly the affordable housing components of it. I fully agree that we ought to remain with the inclusionary rules that we have in place, and I am grateful to the staff for proposing that modification.
Second.
Any other questions about this at this time? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item, proposed for March 19th, is the Manhattan West proposal, which involves a zoning text amendment to facilitate enhanced public access areas on property located between West 31st and 33rd Streets, 9th and 10th Avenues. Our presenter will be Frank, and Commissioner Cerullo has recused on this item.
Do I need to leave?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Go away. Go away. That's what it means.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So as you know, the Manhattan West text amendment predominantly deals with the public site plan, public access areas, the site plan requirements for the Manhattan West site. The as-of-right densities, 19 FAR on the eastern portion of the site, 21.6, are permitted as of right, and they're not being changed as part of this text amendment, nor are the residential densities as they are remaining as proposed. Given that the issues discussed at the public hearing, the predominant issues affecting the text amendment, we're dealing with the hours of operation of the public access areas themselves on the site. The applicant's proposal calls for the public access areas to be required to be open a minimum of 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. Little background, in Hudson Yards, the original 2005 proposal actually had no hours of operation for any of the public access areas in Hudson Yards, and there was this implication that any hours of operation would then be permitted. So given that over time, as we've gone through some of the major sites of Hudson Yards as part of text amendments or rezoning, we've put hours of operation for particular spaces that we think fit their existing or their proposed character. Starting on the western rail yards, moving to the eastern rail yards, and now to Manhattan West. Generally, interior spaces were given one set of hours, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Large public open spaces similar to parks were actually given hours of operation similar to parks, 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. And in addition, spaces that were more like public plazas were given the hours of operation of public plazas, which are 24 hours a day. In looking more deeply at the proposed site plan, most of the spaces on the Manhattan West site are of that ilk of large public open spaces. So we think for the great bulk of space here, 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. makes sense. However, we do believe that the spaces in the front along 9th Avenue, the public plaza and the art plaza, and even just given their name, may actually warrant the hours of public plazas. And so in these spaces, given their location adjacent to someday perhaps future Farley, and just itself 9th Avenue, and also their ability to actually provide access to the two tower sites, we believe those spaces should have hours of access, which are the public plaza requirements. And so staff recommends making that modification to the text. In addition, one of the comments that we heard was that not only was it an issue of hours, but making sure that spaces couldn't be gated off or fenced off. And in some respects, it was actually a good point. Some of the other texts in Hudson Yards, we actually have requirements that there be no gates or fences be able to be constructed in the spaces. And we think that makes sense to actually add to the text here to ensure that these spaces, even if their hours of operation are set, that they actually provide, not be able to construct fences in the spaces. And so we therefore recommend adding that provision also to this text. But beyond that, I think that was a great bulk of what we were talking about at the hearing.
Any questions? Ms. Deleuze.
Frank, thanks for the follow-up and for the clarification. So given that there's two different recommendations, and I agree with you in terms of where staff ended up, how would it just be signage that would then indicate that one is 24 hours and one is 6 a.m. to 1 a.m.?
That's correct.
And so there'd be no gate.
I think what we would do is actually what the proposal would actually say is that the text would set forth that none of these public access area would be allowed to have gates or fences. That's kind of first. And then the hours would be set forth for each of the specific spaces, 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. for the main, particular central space. But the two plazas would be required to follow POPs for their public access.
Just adjacent.
So, and there are requirements in the text already for signage for the spaces, and so that would be required to be included on that.
Do we have a situation like this in another location where you have two sites with different hours adjacent to one another?
We do. I mean, in Hudson Yards we do. Highline has different hours of operation, particular to the Eastern Rail Yard is a good example where there's actually connection between the space. They have different hours of operation, and there's no allowance for there to be a gate.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. In addition to Frank's, the application he just described, we also have 431 West 125th Street office space proposal, which Edwin described earlier as the Manhattan Borough President's Upper Manhattan office. Let's move to the April 2nd votes. Melissa's here to walk us through follow-ups on the Rockefeller University expansion proposal, which involves special permits and a city map amendment.
There's a letter today.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The City Planning Commission held its public hearing on Rockefeller University on February 19th, and a number of issues were raised during that discussion. Rockefeller provided a letter to the Commission, and was provided to you earlier today in response to some of those issues that were discussed at the hearing. The letter reiterates some of the commitments that Rockefeller has agreed to make, including increasing the height of the sound barrier from 5 to 8 feet. And a question came up during the earlier review session before the public hearing as to what the effect of that height would be. So I have some new boards to show you. The left-hand board shows the height of the sound barrier at 5 feet. The right-hand board shows the 8-foot height. Another issue that came up during the discussions around the public hearing were with regard to the community engagement in the Esplanade design process. There was a design charrette that was sponsored by Rockefeller with its design team. It was held on February 20th. It was attended by residents, the community board, and at that time the community's input was collected at that meeting. And the input will actually be digested by Department of Parks and also City Planning, and Rockefeller is planning to go back to the community board or to the community residents pretty soon. As you know, the Esplanade improvements are a part of the project's partial mitigation, And as the design is refined, it will need to meet minimum requirements for the Esplanade amenities, such as planting, seating, trees, et cetera. And these minimums will be set in the FEIS. With regard to Esplanade maintenance, Rockefeller committed to 4 years of Esplanade maintenance and financing, and is considering financing further beyond the maintenance of this 4-year period. Department of Parks and Recreation will be engaging with Rockefeller about this, and any new commitments would be assured through the restrictive declaration. Updates on these discussions and any additional information requested at this time will be provided to the Commission at the next post-hearing, which is March 17th. In terms of the request to expand special events and public programming at Rockefeller, Rockefeller wanted to reiterate that its current programming actually serves 40 free concerts per year. It welcomes about 17,000 visitors at the campus. There are also some private concerts that they provide, and they also are participants in the Open House New York program. The university is also in the process of hiring a new director of communications and public affairs who will take on the expansion of public programming, including expansion of the gardens in temperate months. In terms of the issue that came up about opening the campus to the community and potentially creating new publicly accessible open space on its campus, Rockefeller's letter reiterates or recognizes the community district's needs for open space and believes that its improvements on the Esplanade would greatly enhance the quality and utility of the Esplanade. And the university, being a secured biomedical facility, does allow for scientists to access campus buildings unencumbered, and any changes to those operations would require changes to its culture at the university and also expanded security. However, nonetheless, Rockefeller states that it is committed to providing enhanced programming on its campus in a controlled portion of its campus, including a portion of the new rooftop amphitheater. I think also there was a question that was raised at the review session prior to the public hearing about whether the trees that are existing around the fitness center would be displaced. Actually, they're going to be replaced with the same amount of trees or more. That's about it.
Questions? Mr. Cantor.
Were there any further discussion regarding shadows? There was some concern by the community that the promenade would be in the shade too frequently.
There were no further discussions other than how the changes to the design of the Esplanade would continue to occur with the community board or with the community's input.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Melissa.
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. Let's now return to our proposal on for March 5th vote, Domino Sugar.
Thank you, Jackie. Let me just say a few words about this. As you know, I'm very new to this project as well as very new to this commission. And in fact, this is officially my very first day. However, I have very carefully reviewed the project record here and had briefings by the city planning staff even before officially starting here, and had extensive discussions with the city team. And I really want to, this is a very large and incredibly complex project, but I first just want to commend the department staff that's worked on this over these past several months and indeed past several years, particularly the Brooklyn office, council's office. And they have really worked hard to meet concerns of all the interested parties here, including the concerns expressed by members of the Commission. This project is obviously particularly important given its prominence on the size, its scale, its prominence on the Brooklyn waterfront, and the proposed project components. In general, I believe, as I think all members of this Commission, as far as I know, believe that this is a better site plan than the one that was approved by this Commission in 2010, and it provides, in addition to being a better site plan, it provides a greater amount of office and commercial use, and has a significant improvement in the size and quality of its open space. And for that, the applicant itself should be commended, because I think the applicant, who has been a real visionary in Brooklyn in many ways and has been part of the renaissance of Brooklyn, has really worked hard to really do something here that can be very special. And at the same time, the applicant, we know, is seeking 200,000 square feet more floor area and much taller buildings. And I believe, and I think the sentiment of this Commission has been that in order to achieve a more balanced project, in exchange for that increased density and height, that some additional affordable housing then has been proposed is very important. And that has been a theme that has run, I know, throughout the public review discussion of this project. The applicant has stated a goal of providing 660 affordable units of housing, and that's been a key factor in the support of this project in every forum where it's been, and both the Community Board and the Borough President have made their support of the project contingent on 660 units, as well as providing a mix of 2- and 3-bedroom family-sized units. So I know that the Commission has also expressed the goal of maximizing affordable housing in a way that promotes that good mix of unit sizes, and also doing it in a way that makes this project feasible and can lead to construction expeditiously. As first proposed by the applicant, the amount of affordable floor area would have been reduced to 427,000 feet from the 502,000 square feet approved in 2010, despite the larger size of the project. And staff has worked hard to come up with a recommendation to you that we believe reflects an appropriate balance, and I think that they will be prepared to, and are prepared to, provide that to you now. Obviously, going forward, we are going to have a renewed emphasis on affordable housing as projects are considered for increased density and change of use. I think we all recognize that affordable housing is one of the, if not the major crisis that is affecting our city, and it's our obligation, consistent with good planning and a good outcome, to do everything we can to help achieve a goal of whether it's 200,000 new units over the next 10 years or more, in a way that furthers the health of the city of New York. And with that, I turn it over to Purnima to discuss at least what staff believes should be an appropriate way to proceed. Thanks, Purnima.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as Chairman has stated, we've been reviewing this project over the last couple of review sessions with you in the post-hearing sessions, and we've been discussing ways in which the affordable housing component in particular can be enhanced as this project. So just to remind the Commission, the 2010 approvals were for a project that was approximately 2.75 million square feet, In that case, zoning would have required 502,000 square feet of affordable housing to achieve the maximum bonus, to get to the full FAR. The current proposal, the way it has been filed, is for 2.95 million square feet of development overall, and through the proposed text amendments, the required affordable housing to achieve the full bonus would have been 427,000 square feet. And that has been an issue that we've been discussing, and we've been talking about ways that zoning could require a higher affordable requirement. And what staff is recommending is that the Commission modify the text amendments that are proposed in two ways. And the basis of this is really considering this almost 3 million square foot project as a large-scale project that really has all of these elements, the residential, the community facility, the commercial, the retail, as they are all integral to a project that is predominantly residential, large-scale project, and that all floor area above the ground floor non-residential floor area would be exempted, but all floor area above the ground floor would be counted towards generating the inclusionary housing requirement. The exception that would be made in this case would be for the public school that is being provided. So based on this analysis, we estimate that something in the range of 537,000 square feet of affordable floor area would be required for the project to achieve the full FAR that they're seeking. So the way the text amendment would be modified technically would be twofold. One, the Commission would not approve the part of the text amendment that seeks to reduce the floor area by exempting the commercial largely in the northern building, Building A. This is completely consistent with the approvals that were in place in 2010, where a similar floor area was included for calculating the affordable housing requirement. And then the second part of the text amendment would be this large-scale concept where the entire floor area above ground floor would generate the inclusionary housing requirement, and that would include the block that the refinery sits on that the applicant had sought to keep as a separate zoning lot. So between those two amendments, we would get to approximately 537, depending on how these uses are laid out in the project. That's what the zoning would require. While this would not require 660 units, this is a floor area that is sufficient to get 660 units in the project with a good mix of 2 and 3 bedroom as required, as has been recommended by a number of people and as the Commission has also required. So that is one modification staff is recommending. The other one has to do with programming of the Domino Square open space. And I'm going to ask David if he wants to speak to that.
Yeah. They're worried. No.
I think at the last review session we discussed the question of programming for the open spaces. The concern had been raised during the process about the programming of Domino Square and perhaps as well the waterfront spaces. And the applicant, of course, has a very robust concept of what they would do on the spaces. The issue was whether those events and programs might overwhelm the space or simply that we make sure that they have a public character to them. So the restrictive declaration will include provision for the establishment of a review board consisting of members nominated by the local community board, the council member, and the Open Space Alliance for North Brooklyn, which is a local nonprofit concerned with open space. And that board will be presented each year by the developer with a program plan that in general terms will describe the type of programming proposed for the spaces and include a description of their size, their anticipated locations and frequency and other details that would provide the review board with a sense of what these events are going to be like. The review board would have the opportunity to review the plan and to approve it or to disapprove it or to approve it with modifications or conditions. The role of the board would be to act with respect to the type of program, not with respect to, let's say, the selection of an individual performer or program sponsor, and not with respect to the business arrangements between the developer and the program sponsor or performer. It really is about the use of the space for types of programming, and that would be its function. So that will be in the restrictive declaration.
Certainly. Let's do, I suspect there'll be a lot of questions. David?
No, just on the Domino Square. David, how many individuals will populate this review board?
We're still working that out. The concept, though, is again, as I said, that there's certain nominating entities who will nominate members to the board, and I listed them: the community board, the council member, this Open Space Alliance, and from among nominations, the board will be selected. Some of the mechanics are still being discussed, and I can update you on Wednesday, but that is the concept.
Is the review board ultimately an advisory board, or?
No, and I think the term review board was selected to make clear that it is not an advisory board, because with respect to the program plan that is presented to it, it actually has a role of approving, disapproving, or approving with modifications, and the implementation of the plan is as acted upon by the board. If the board fails to act and so forth, then obviously developer can proceed on its own. But the point is, when they approve a plan or they approve it with modifications, that is the plan, and this is a condition of the declaration that the developer comply with the plan. So it is more than advisory.
So they will have a finite period within which to consider and act?
Yes. The declaration will lay out a period for submission of the plan, a period for review of the plan, a period for action on the plan, an opportunity for developer to come back and work through issues and problems with potential modifications that they may find problematic, and to see whether the board might reconsider or modify further. It's an extended process, but at the end of the day, this is a plan that has the imprimatur and approval or not of this board. So
in the hopefully unlikely event that there's a failure to have a meeting of the minds on any programming aspect, what is the resolution?
Well, as we have thought of it, there is an opportunity to meet and confer at the beginning. We encourage the developer, for example, to meet and confer even before submitting, then to submit, then for the board to review and act, then for the developer to have an opportunity to come back and try to work through issues. But at the end of the day, as I said, it's the review board that has the final say on this. So if the answer is no, then the developer's going to have to come back with a different kind of plan that will meet their needs and concerns. So that's the way it would work.
Okay, well, let's start. Ms. Battaglia.
Let me say thank you for starting with me. I wish Justin were here today to see me smile. Mr. Chair, thank you to you. I am not surprised that even on your first day here, you came here with a full knowledge of the issue. You spoke articulately of it, and you expounded on this administration's philosophy to increase affordable housing. I want to thank you, Purnima. I know a lot went into this. I know you probably are still in discussions, and I do want to say that I am happy with the outcome. The amount of floor area now that will be devoted to affordable housing is 110,000 more square feet than in the original proposal, and that really pleases me. My question is procedural. You mentioned that we will be disapproving the text amendment. Does that mean we will be voting no, or will it be modified to just be omitted from the application and then we will be voting yes when this report comes
The
out.
Commission is modifying the text amendment, and we presented you with reports that will be favorable reports. So you're approving a project with a modified text amendment.
And I do appreciate with the, is now 537,000 square feet of affordable floor area, that there will, I am confident, be 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, which the community really wanted, so that pleases me as well. And I just want to just a little bit respond to the Vice Chair's issue. I know the stakeholders in this community really well. I know the council member really well. And my limited experience with the developer is such that I believe they will come to consensus. They will. He's been accommodating the developer that is in other sections of Brooklyn. And all this community wants is that it be the right programming for the community there. So I think at the end of the day, Ken, we will all be happy. I again say thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess in part, I'm going to play a little bit off of Commissioner Battaglia's question. I just want to understand technically how the change applies on the affordable piece of this. Are we still focused on the 660, or are we focused on the 537, or must there be 660 that comes out of the 537?
So we are not focused on the number of units here. We are focused on the floor area that would be required by zoning to achieve the bonus. So, it depends the size of the maximum size of the project. In order to get to that 2.95 million square feet, approximately 537,000 square feet of affordable floor area would be required.
And I'm assuming, well, I'll restate this. I'm assuming that there have been discussions with the applicant, and I raised this issue based on the communications that we've seen publicly, and this actually is what I mean about playing off Commissioner Battaglia, about speaking about the developer, and I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Chairman, about the impact that this developer has had in Brooklyn and the vision and the renaissance, as you put it, of Brooklyn. What is our sense, this has come up in the past where and if it's something that can be discussed, of what's doable and not, because the debate, at least in the past week or so, that the public has been able to view through media accounts is about what's feasible and what isn't. What do we believe that this breakout is feasible and therefore doable, and that it's not creating, although I support the idea of increasing affordable housing, that's not the issue, but in terms of how the project gets to proceed.
Yeah. Let me say this. We are mindful, obviously, that we're facing a deadline here, and that there have been discussions with the applicant, and those discussions are still to some extent ongoing. But I think a combination of those discussions, but most particularly the work that the staff has really done in such an incredibly thoughtful and careful way, leads us to believe that we think what we are putting before you today should work for everybody. At least that's what we hope, and that and we hope to see that become a reality. So it really still is to some extent a work in progress. But as you said, I think the applicant has been just an enormously positive influence and force in Brooklyn and indeed in the city of New York. And I think we all want the same outcome, which is a project that we can all very, very much be proud of and that works economically.
Thank you, and thank you, Purnima. The first part of the question was to understand the flexibility within were we trying to get both of those numbers to work, or were we providing more flexibility, which will potentially increase the size of the units and all that? Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Cantor, you missed your turn. No, we'll come back to you.
He was on the phone.
We'll come back. Ms. Chen. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes density is not limited to a square foot, but could be up here too. Just a further clarification. At the end of the day, I was not clear with regard to the text amendment. At the end of the day, everything above the street floor retail counts as area, which is going to be subject to the requirement for affordable housing, which is how you got up to 537,000 square feet, correct?
Yes, everything, anything on the ground floor that is non-residential is exempt. So it could be community facility, retail, commercial, anything non-residential on the ground floor. Everything above the ground floor would count except the school. The school is out.
And to go back on the question that the Vice Chair asked earlier, at the end of the day, and which David answered to a certain extent, at the end of the day, if there's an impasse, is this review panel going to have the authority to stop the project, because that's effectively what could happen?
The panel, just to be clear, the review panel that David talked about strictly has to do with the programming of Domino Square. That's it.
That.
Okay.
But I'm saying if they reached an impasse, will have the legal wherewithal to stop.
To stop, you mean the programming that's proposed?
The programming, yes.
Let me just clarify one. No, let me clarify.
I'm sure that's not true.
Let's assume that Two Trees wants to do A, B, and C in a given year, and the board says no. We don't like A, B, and C, or we don't like A, B, and C without certain conditions, and they impose those conditions. Two Trees has no obligation to implement that program just because the board wanted to see it happen with certain conditions. By the same token, if they turn it down, Two Trees can come back with something else. But we have also thought that there shouldn't be a situation where there's no programming on the site. Therefore, what it says is that if the review board fails to act, or if it turns it down, then the program that was approved by the review board in the prior year can continue if Two Trees wants to do that. But if Two Trees wants to continue to pursue something different, it's going to have to go back because it can't proceed with anything new. That's the way it works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cirillo. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Chen. Pardon me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I don't want to give him two. Okay. Ms. Chen.
So I had been troubled at the applicant's text amendment to change the rules or criteria by which they would calculate the inclusionary housing bonus. So I'm very happy to see that the department has sort of really thought about that and is really looking at this very holistically as a large scale, and because that's really what it is, right? You have this comprehensive plan of mixed use with a balance of open space and sort of very carefully considered massing plan. So I think that's a real, credit to the staff, and I'm very happy to see it going in that direction. My question just has to do with the implementation. So let's say you do the calculations as you've discussed, but you've talked about the largest possible envelope. Let's say the developer, and I know they have a phasing plan, but let's say they're going along and building this. They don't build the full project. They build less than the full project. Is there a way that you peg, because you're looking at this as a large scale, do you peg the affordable housing by building, by phase, and how do you kind of peg this as you go along?
So the proposal is now to peg it to the building. So each building would have an FAR that is their base FAR, and then another one that is with the affordable housing built in to it. And at every stage of the project, if they don't do the full FAR, they get the lower bulk and the lower height.
So you don't build all the affordable housing at the end, or you don't build it all in one
You have
building?
to
It's
keep up with the,
distributed.
yes.
Ms. Delos?
I think the department and our chairman need to be commended for coming to this conclusion. I think it'll be extremely beneficial to residents and the community board, and will obviously help meet a tremendous need. I look forward to how the conversation evolves, because I believe the conversation is ongoing, because obviously there's going to have to be some revisiting about some original underwriting and assumptions, I'm sure, on the developer's part. And it would be very interesting to see how it evolves in the next stage in terms of if there's any commitments outside of the 537, which would become part of our modification around the number of units and the two and the larger bedroom sizes, because I do believe, although it won't be part of what we're going to be voting on, I do believe it's something that the community will continue to care very much about moving forward.
Thank you. Ms. Del Toro?
First of all, I don't want to repeat myself. Everybody has said, I think we all share the same feeling about what has happened, and compliment you and the chair for such an incredible job, because this is quite different than when we first started. And I know we all reacted with tremendous unhappiness when the idea was to amend the regulations of inclusionary housing. That is really wonderful, and I now understand that we're going to be talking about square footage rather than the units, and I'm fine with that. I would like you to talk to us a little bit about the range of affordability. What is it that we're discussing? Not in terms of the units, but I mean, what is the range of affordability, and how does it change in terms of, you talk about two options that can be used to do the inclusionary housing. So can you sort of walk us through that?
Sure. So the two options that you're referring to as part of the text amendment are the two options that are available in Greenpoint and Williamsburg. And what those two options say is that if a developer chooses the inclusionary housing program and does housing that is affordable to people making 80% of the AMI or lower, then 20% of the floor area is dedicated to that to get to the full FAR is required. The second option allows the developer to do a combination of low-income and moderate-income housing. The low-income is the 80% and below. The moderate is up to 125% of the AMI. And in that scenario, it would be 10% of the low-income or 15% of the moderate income. What the text amendment is seeking, generally, the way this works is that it's been designed for a single zoning lot where the developer at the beginning picks, I'm doing either the 80% option or the moderate income option, and the project gets built like this. In a multi-phase project such as this one, the developer was seeking the flexibility to be able to do 80% of the AMI, 20% for one building, but when it came to the second building, if they wanted to do the 25% option, that they be allowed to do that. So that's the flexibility that we are giving through that text amendment. So overall, in the development, there would be no less than 10% of the housing that is 80% of the AMI or under, if they go for the higher number, and there you would have a minimum 20% affordable if everything is 80%, and if it's more, then it can be anywhere between 20 and 25%. It doesn't have to be either just 20 or all 25. That's the flexibility. So that's the AMI limits that we are talking about.
Okay.
Was there?
No, I think that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to sort of figure out, I mean, we want, obviously, to make sure that we have the greatest range of affordability so that it's not just on the high end, So that's really where
So,
asking
and
the question.
actually, the one thing that the proposed modifications that we've been talking about to the text amendment that I actually did not mention until you reminded me of this is that the one of the provisions that the restrictive declaration will allow the developer in this case is that of the 537,000 square feet, up to 50,000 square feet of that floor area could be provided as moderate income housing, and that would still count towards this lower income category. So we're increasing the overall amount of the inclusionary housing requirement, but allowing 50,000, up to 50,000 to be moderate income.
Mhm. Okay. And can I just follow up with
Sure.
another?
Go ahead.
And the other question was the first building, the phase one on the upland side. Originally, there was a great number of affordable units that were to be in that building. Is that still the case, or does that change with what we have, what you're presenting?
I think that it's certainly an area where discussions are still a little ongoing, so let's see how we really end up.
Okay.
Okay.
I trust.
Thanks. Yeah, Mr. Dwight.
At the risk of being redundant, I want to commend you, the Brooklyn office, the department, and of course the chair, on the hard work that went into this proposal, and I commend you on the outcome. Getting back to the 537,000 square feet, I know that originally we've been talking about 660 units, and now we're talking in terms of square footage. Do you have any idea how it will affect the amount of units? Because that is something that is of interest to the greater community.
Sure. So we believe that the 537,000 square feet would allow the developer to, if they were to do 660 units, HPD has these guidelines that sort of say that a project could either be 50% two bedrooms and above, and the remaining 50% studios and one bedrooms, or 60% of the project would be studios and one bedrooms, 30% two bedrooms, and 10% three bedrooms. So we've looked at several of those variations, and it allows for all of that range of housing types to be built within the 537,000 square feet.
And you still anticipate a minimum of about 660 units?
Yes.
Roughly in the range?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Mr. Reade.
Thank you. Just going back to the review board and the Domino Square issue for a quick moment. Refresh my memory. Is there a requirement that the developer does programming in that area? I know they have a desire to. And
they have a desire to, and the current version of the declaration says that they shall.
It says
they shall. It doesn't say how much, but it says that they shall. That the idea is that Domino Square should be activated, and that's a good thing, subject to this process I described.
And the second question I have is just in regards to the process. To the degree that parties agree to a program at the beginning of the year and they move forward, is there a mechanism to modify it during the course of the year if people change their mind or other conditions?
Well, no. I think it's not about the review board changing its mind. I mean, I think the course is set for that year with the understanding that there's another program proposal the next year, and if the board in retrospect feels that certain type of programming was not appropriate, they can take another look at that in the context of a new program. What it does include, though, is a provision that says basically that at the time that this plan is proposed, the developer is expressing its intentions at that time. And in the event that the developer identifies another event that doesn't fit within the scope of the plan during the year and wants to put it on in one of the spaces, it has the ability to go to the review board and say, look, this wasn't anticipated when we came to you some months ago, but here is the event that we'd like to do, and there's a mini process around that kind of a situation to allow that to go forward.
In your scenario, that was an additional program. And if you wanted to, like, My thought was, if after a couple of events, people think, we've talked about doing 10 more of these and they're not going to work, and if parties both agree that they want to modify it at some point, should there not be a mechanism?
I don't think there's any problem with a mutual agreement. I think there is a problem with having a plan that is adopted and the developer then proceeds to implement and essentially make commitments, and then having the review board essentially pull the plug on a certain type of program type. I think that's problematic. Obviously, if there's an agreement that something isn't working out, that could be handled, and we can note that.
Do that. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I just, again, Ms. Marin, sorry.
That's okay. Pranama, I just want you to, because I'm thinking about this, and something's not sitting right in my head. You talked about the percentages, a 20% affordable component, but then you broke it down into a 10 and 15, where 10 was 80 and below and 15 was 80 and above, equaling 25% of the project. But then we jumped back to the 20% of the project being 537 square feet. So can you help me tie those and understand that a little bit better, because I'm not understanding it?
So the developer, the 537,000 number is assuming that it is using the first option, the
Correct.
80%
And below.
and below. However, as part of sort of these modifications that we are discussing, this is something that's being proposed that 50,000, up to 50,000 square feet of that floor area be allowed to be moderate income housing and still qualify for that 537, 80% AMI calculation.
50,000 or 50%?
50,000 square feet,
Okay.
not 50%.
I got you.
Okay?
Any other questions about this? Again, I just want to underscore, I'm really very new to this, and the progress that's been made is really due absolutely to the hard work of Purnima, David, Howard, and their staffs, and it's a real tribute to them that we've made this much progress, and hopefully we'll get it over the finish line in the next few days, working closely with the applicant. And with that, Jackie, any other business?
That's it for today.
That's it for today? I will call this review session to a close and see you all on Wednesday, I hope. Thank you. What? No, Wednesday. He'll be here Wednesday.
So I don't know, I guess they'll put it up in his room.